Let's rank the top 10 quarterbacks in college football heading into 2024. I've already done the SEC quarterback rankings, the Big Ten, the ACC, as well as the Big 12, and I even did the top 12 G5 quarterbacks. But let's do a combined list and see who the best 10 quarterbacks are. At number 10, Seth Henig at Memphis. Henig is probably the only surprise on this list to some people. Some people just don't know him, and that's because he's not in the Power 4 conference. He's in the G5. He's at Memphis, and this is your sign to go watch Seth Henig play. He is so good and so underrated. As you know, or as most of you know, in my video from yesterday, I put that Memphis is my prediction to be the G5 team that makes the playoff. And Seth Henig is their engine, throwing for almost 4,000 yards last season, 32 touchdowns, and only 9 interceptions. Number 9, Cam Ward at Miami. Cam Ward was the best player in the transfer portal in my opinion, and now he's at Miami. He's electric. He's so fun to watch. Even at Washington State last year when they started off 4-0, beat a quality Oregon State team, and then proceeded to lose 7 of the next 8 games and went 5-7. He was still exciting to watch during that time. Now he's at Miami, and there's so much excitement and pressure in Coral Gables, mainly because of him. Number 8, Kaden Salter at Liberty. Salter is the best G5 quarterback for my money. He is so good, and he has the best stats of any quarterback in the entire country. Last year at Liberty led them to a New Year's Six Bowl, 13-0 before that, led them to a CUSA championship. Almost 3,000 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he also had 1,100 rushing yards on the ground with 12 more rushing touchdowns. Number 7, Jalen Milroe at Alabama. Milroe is a tough quarterback to evaluate. When we first saw him in 2022 when Bryce Young went down, he looked like he didn't know what he was doing at some points. And then last year, at the start of the season last year when they beat Middle Tennessee, he looked fantastic. Then they lost to Texas and he looked horrible. Nick Saban decided to pull him against USF, and we all know how ugly that game was. Then he gets back as the starter, and Alabama does not look back. He has an amazing end of the season. He was so good. He has one of the best deep balls in the country. He is so fast, and I would not be surprised if he wins the Heisman this coming season. Number 6, Noah Fafita at Arizona. This time last year, I didn't even know who Noah Fafita was, and I don't know who did outside the state of Arizona. Then Jaden DeLora, the starter for Arizona at the beginning of the season last year, gets hurt. Noah Fafita comes in and leads this team to 10 wins, 10-3. And he's so good, so good. Arizona is a dark horse Big 12 champion pick. The only problem is their head coach left. Their head coach, Jed Fish, left for Washington. So that it lowers expectations. But with Noah Fafita and Teteroa McMillan, that wide receiver, if he's not the best wide receiver in the country, he's number 2. I still believe that they can take him there. Number 5, Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Dart led Ole Miss to 11 wins last season, and he shined throughout the entire season. Almost 3,000 yards passing, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Ole Miss is a pick to make the playoff next year, and they are going to be so fun to watch this season. Number 4, Shadur Sanders at Colorado. Love him or hate him, this kid is a beast, man. Last season, he threw for 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions in an offense with no rushing attack whatsoever, and he was behind one of the worst offensive lines in the country. Just crazy that he still had those stats even with all that happening around him. And the O-line should be better this season, but even so, Shadur Sanders is a top 4 quarterback in college football. Number 3, Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. Gabriel seems like he's been in college football for the last 10 years, and I'd watch him if he was there for another 10. That's how exciting he is to watch. He's gone to Oregon now. Started off at UCF, was an amazing quarterback there, and then had 2 great seasons at Oklahoma. Last year, he threw for over 3,200 yards, 30 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he also had 12 rushing touchdowns. Just fill the stat sheet up, and at Oregon, they have national championship expectations. Number 2, Quinn Ewers at Texas. Quinn Ewers has the best arm in college football, in my opinion, and I believe NFL scouts feel the same way. Injuries are a bit of a concern, and he's not the most mobile quarterback, but I believe he's better than average, more mobile than average, I should say. He can just throw it, and he's so accurate. Over 70% completion percentage last year, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and he also threw for over 3,500 yards. Texas made the playoff last year behind Quinn Ewers, and this year they have even higher hopes. Number 1, Carson Beck at Georgia. Last year, Carson Beck every big game Georgia had, I was waiting for him to show how inexperienced he was. I was waiting for him to show mistakes and show the pressure was getting to him, but it just never happened. He was outright ridiculous in almost every big game last year. You can say in the SEC championship game that he showed his inexperience, but I don't believe so. I just think he had an off game and made some mistakes, but he looked ready for every game last year. In that 4-game stretch where they played Missouri, Ole Miss, Florida, and Tennessee, he was insane and just balled out in all 4 of those games. This year, Georgia is a pissed off group because they didn't make the playoff last year. They lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and I believe that Georgia will be my pick to win it all this year, knowing that Carson Beck will be the starting quarterback and how good he is. So yeah, guys, that is my list for the top 10 quarterbacks in college football. Comment what you disagree with below. Like and subscribe. It helps the channel so much. If you want a more in-depth review, look at my conference rankings, the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and the G5. I go a little bit more in depth, and more guys to talk about, obviously. So appreciate y'all for watching. Follow us on TikTok at 3 and Out CFB and on Twitter at 3 and Out _CFB. I appreciate y'all.